The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Friday, the 3rd day of December 2021. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, and Lindos. I'm Jamel Hartman. She's Sherry Vanderpool. And
I
Leanna
get your permission
in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Sherry, you tired this Friday? How you doing,
I
sir?
am. I'm having a moment. I feel like I'm having a hot flash.
Folks,
Jamal does that to me sometimes.
I'll take the blame. It's all on me. My apologies, audience. My apologies. Big show today. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for making us part of your daily routine. Another good one today as we welcome Eugene Dean to the show to discuss the state of the pandemic. The Daily Play is it's some more Christmas trivia. I'm not even gonna tell you, but look.
I've only gotten one wrong thus far. Joy to the world. I got Bethlehem.
You didn't get Christmas. We're
Germany.
Yeah, right, Germany. And
yeah.
But you've been pretty good. So today,
gosh.
I think you'll get today. If you don't, just tells me that you were a bad child, and you weren't rewarded by old Saint Nick.
Mama Patterson would not agree to that.
We'll have that chat with her. We will have that chat with her. But folks, we're gonna do something different today. So very important conversation, because one of the things that we pride ourselves on, look, Sherry and I have been doing this daily over the last month and a half, and she'll tell you it's not easy doing something with someone whose personality is, well, so different. I mean, how can I deal with her personality like that, right? But saying that to say that
you are the minority.
But saying that to say, this platform is all about engaging conversations that we can learn from. That we may not agree with, we may not understand, but that we can learn from. Sherry is actually a very good sport. I leave it to her when it comes to certain things that I just don't understand, and vice versa. She is very honest when she doesn't know and understand stuff. It's not about agreeing with people, but it's about learning from people. Learning from people doesn't mean that we're going to agree with them, but an understanding doesn't mean that we're going to agree with them, but there's a respect in the conversation. And so I am honored to have Eugene Dean here. Not necessarily because I may agree with everything he does, but I completely understand, and I'm here for the information that he's open to sharing. And so I encourage our audience and fellow Bermudians who may drop in just for this show or every other show to understand that this show is not about being dismissive. It's not about being disrespectful. It's about really having conversations, sometimes uncomfortable, about things that will pretty much make us easier to live amongst each other with. We can't go amongst our lives disrespecting one another simply because we disagree with people. You get me, Sherry?
Do you like that last part? Disrespecting people. But no, I appreciate Eugene, and I'm gonna say this, again, just to echo what you said, you don't always agree with people and all of that good stuff, but if you learn to understand at least where they're coming from, the conversation could be what it is. And the one thing I can appreciate about Eugene, he has been consistent for years.
Yeah. And let's talk about him before he comes on. Let's talk about him. I like talking about people when they can come defend themselves in a bit. But I say this because, for those, you say that, Sherry, and I think that's an important comment. Some people say, oh, being consistent is not necessarily a good thing. Someone can be a consistent BS or whatnot. But the consistency is in the personality, in the things that you're fighting for and fought for.
Mhm.
I see the challenge I have, right? And folks, I've been very upfront and honest. I was vaccinated early, very early part of this year. But I've always said I actually understand and agree with many of the things that those who have spoken out against the vaccine. I think they have valid arguments, and I state
Yes.
why I do. One of the things that I understand most is their right to believe and fight in what they do. Right. Um,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, there are a lot of questions, and when we have questions, all we're doing is simply looking for answers.
Yeah.
That's it. So I'm grateful for this conversation, folks. We're going to do something very different. We're going to do something well. Let me go to this comment because this is interesting. This is interesting. Sam Cat Play says, in the short time that I've heard him speak, he is very calm. It's refreshing to hear, even when folks are fighting for what they believe, as it helps the message to get across. But it's interesting because Eugene and I had a conversation about this. And I've had people say to me, well, I get what you say about Eugene, but he comes across so angry and aggressive. I'm like, dear Rasta don't come across aggressive to me.
Hmm.
And so but it took me back. It took me back to that place when we were fighting conscription. And people would say, oh, well, you guys just come across so angry. Dr. King came across angry. Nelson Mandela, before he was,
Yeah.
yeah, he was considered angry. I mean, he was called a terrorist by Margaret Thatcher. Malcolm X was considered angry. Folks, it's the message.
Yeah. The thing is that, when you talk about consistency and you talk about passion, people mistake passion for, anger. And
Yes,
it's definitely a vast difference between the two. And I think if you know who the person is, you can understand that, or just separate the emotion from the conversation.
correct.
Eugene, I remember from high school, he
Why you
has
got an
been
aged man like
consistent.
that, lady?
Well, he's still looking good. You see his eating vegan and all of that type of stuff probably since high school. Look at the man's skin. He has been consistent. Now, whether
Yeah.
we agree on the same
Mhm.
views or not, that's for another time. But at
Mhm.
the end of the day, Eugene has been consistent
Yeah.
over the years, a number of years. So for
Indeed.
him to be, on the show and discussing the things that he is, it's not
Mhm.
surprising.
Indeed. That's a good point, and I'm going to probably bring that up later with him as well because I don't know personally Sophia Cannonier, for instance, and I know more about Eugene, but I think one of the things that people who support and follow them need to understand is what you just said: consistency in how they live, their behaviors, their health. Right?
Hmm.
Don't just follow them in what they believe in this situation, but understand these people live holistic lives, healthy lives, and so on. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to go over to Liana to do the news break early. Just want to share this comment. James Burt says, I think people are misplacing their own anger on others and miss the messages. Yes,
Mm.
James, I agree. And James also says, good morning, Bermuda. I like it over here on YouTube. The stream is smoother, I find. Well, I'll say this much. James is not a paid member of the show, but I will say this. He must know something that the audience didn't. But we will be going over to YouTube. So everyone on Facebook, I'm going to actually drop the YouTube link after the news break. When Tiliana's done with the news break, the show will be aired on YouTube only live, right? So we'll be live on YouTube only. So you want to switch over now. Here's the link is in the comments. What, Sherry? What happened?
Don't like me one time kept refreshing and I work here, kept refreshing it. I'm like, why this shit
Yeah,
ain't
yeah, she was watching
don't
the
be like me.
probably, yeah. Yeah. Hey, Sherry's allowed, folks. She's allowed. She's the outer on the show.
Hey,
Let's
I am, and openly will say I'm slow sometimes.
we all are, trust me. I'll tell you about my days. Lee, good morning, sister. How are you?
Good morning. I am great. I was actually complimenting Sherry's hairstyle. She had taken me back and kind of threw me. She didn't throw me under the bus, but she put me on the spot to see if I knew what was going on. I know that hairstyle. It
I
came
told
with
her,
spandex, leggings,
yes,
and socks, high socks, and trainers.
Leah.
I, I,
I
yeah.
told her my hairstyle was a little bit of Lisa Cole Jam, and I was like, Lee, you know who that is? She was like, yes. I was like, my sales sister.
As you can
I
see,
look young.
I'm lost and don't know who Lisa Colt
Oh gosh.
Kelly or something. None. Listen, help me, let me know.
You don't know Lisa Cole Jam? Oh, is it Wonder If I Take You Home? Is that one?
That
It's
that's the cue to go to the news break because
yes, but you should have did it a while ago. But you had to know. I'll
yeah.
let you know off air.
You remember the workout videos from back in the day? That's what it
Like
reminds me of.
Jane
Yeah.
Fonda, like that. You're taking up time, Jamal.
You
Okay.
are.
I'm sorry. Here you go, Lee. Over to you, Jane Fonda. I remember Jane Fonda. Yes, that's Ted Turner's ex-wife. Over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Jamal and Sherry. TGIF, everyone. We are so glad it's Friday, and I hope you all are having a great start to the day. I'm Leanna Lambert, and it's time for the Daily Hour News Break brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Here's what's going on in today's top stories. The island recorded 3 new coronavirus cases in the latest test results announced by health officials. Now, since the previous update, 6 people have recovered, and the active cases now stands at 30. Reports are that all the new cases came in from overseas. However, no one is being treated in hospital. According to the Ministry of Health, local data shows that Bermuda is moving out of community transmission. The island's positivity rate is at 0.44%. Meanwhile, Health Minister Kim Wilson earlier this week said that government would change its pre-arrival test requirements for travelers and accept supervised or observed antigen tests taken no more than 3 days before arrival. Now, this new policy comes into effect today. She noted, however, that while the pre-arrival antigen test provides a test result right away to the traveler, observation of the sampling process is required to confirm the result. The Fit to Fly certificate is to be provided by the health service, whether a laboratory or pharmacy that observes the traveler as they do the test. Now, Ms. Wilson told the public, quote, "You can do this from home by purchasing a test, booking an appointment for the observation by video, and the certificate is emailed to you," end quote. In other news, the 10th delivery of COVID-19 vaccines landed in Bermuda yesterday. Government House posted online saying that the FCDO has sent over 70 deliveries of vaccines to British overseas territories across 6 continents without losing one batch so far. Now, this week alone, we've seen vaccines traveling over 14,500 miles to OTs arriving in Bermuda, Cayman, South Georgia, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. Now, if you were wondering, each journey is about 3,600 miles from northern England to Bermuda with an unbroken cold chain and shippers, which lasts only 84 hours. And for a second year in a row, the marketplace is gearing up its ploy to spread a bit of holiday cheer with a Christmas motorcade taking place this Sunday. Now, following the success of last year's change from the traditional Christmas parade format due to COVID-19 restrictions, the supermarket is once again taking their show on the road for all to see, jolly old St. Nick. The Christmas parade will start from Shelly Bay Marketplace parking lot on North Shore Road and head west into Flats. From Flats, it will head west on Middle Road and Smiths Parish through Devonshire Parish along Cavendish Road into the city of Hamilton. Now, after leaving the city, it would head towards the roundabout where it would continue westerly on South Road to the Paget traffic lights. There, it would merge onto Middle Road and travel westerly through Paget, Warwick, and Southampton to arrive at Heron Bay Marketplace parking lot where the parade will come to an end. Taking a look at today's weather, we have a high near 74 and a low near 66 degrees. Today, we'll see a mix of sun and clouds after a possible dawn shower, but bright skies will soon develop after. There is a low pressure trough exiting to the east with high pressure taking over, leading to a fine and dry day and weekend ahead. That's all for the Daily Hour News Break brought to you by People's Pharmacy. But before we go, here's a little helpful tip from your favorite community pharmacist. If you need urgent medication and it's the weekend or you're away from home and do not have your medications, visit or call your trusted People's Pharmacist for ways to refill your prescriptions or advice on how to retrieve a supplemental dose. Now let's head back to Jamal and Sherry in the studio for today's Daily Focus.
Thank you so much for that, Leanna. I have no jokes, but I'm really here going to try to find out this dress code for today that I couldn't figure out. I don't like to feel left out, so I'm not letting this go. Lee, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you back here on Monday.
See you on Monday, guys.
Sherry coming here dressing up, doing all this. Anyway, folks, we are going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be back with you after this short break with Eugene Dean. If you haven't already, go over to our YouTube page, and that's where you'll be able to engage with Eugene and us during the conversation.
This month, we're bringing back an old favorite distributed by John Barrett & Son Limited, a thirst-quenching European treat, Orangina, made from orange, lemon, mandarin, and grapefruit juices. Orangina brings us the flavor of the Mediterranean in a distinctive pear-shaped bottle. Orangina originated in France in the early 1930s and is now one of the world's favorites, a natural thirst quencher containing real fruit pulp. In fact, the makers of Orangina recommend we gently shake the pulp to enjoy the full fruity flavor. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Mom's celebrating her 70th birthday next month. Have you noticed her age is catching up with her?
Yeah. Plus, she's having a hard time getting up and around like she's used to. I would sure hate to see her fall.
At Medical House Limited, we can help make life situations easier. We have electric beds, motorized scooters, bath stools, walkers, you name it.
Mom's been real good to us. We'll get her birthday and Christmas gifts from Medical House.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendytown Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke. Telephone 292-3622.
All right, welcome back to the big show. Sherry Vanderpool, myself, Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House One Communications, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. We're going to play a movement moment as well a bit later with Tamara about humility. We just want to make sure you don't miss out on that and the daily play coming up a bit later. If you're already on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit the subscribe and notification button so you get notified when we're having shows. It is a daily show, and there are plenty of great guests. Sherry, are you ready?
I am ready. No.
All right, let's bring Brother Eugene into the conversation. It is showtime, folks. Eugene, welcome. Good morning.
Greetings. Give thanks.
I mean, look at that skin. Look at it.
Can't see this man's skin, lady. But what they say, when you eat well for so long, when you take care of yourself for so long, the benefits people can see immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah, and appreciate you coming by. It's been quite a while. We had you early in the summer, and this conversation has been happening almost 2 years now regarding COVID. But I want to start this morning in September as the numbers rose in Bermuda. We lost a number of people, right? There were people, some who were on talk programs like this, right? Asking, where's Eugene Dean and the COVID opposers now? They were saying, Eugene's silent. They couldn't find you because all of a sudden the numbers seem to make everyone who opposed the pandemic or vaccine look bad. But I want you to be as direct as possible in responding to those people who felt that you and people like yourself were quiet or felt some guilt or were responsible for what was going on back then.
That's very interesting. Well, to be honest, if anybody felt I was silent or had gone missing. It definitely had nothing to do with what you just described. For everything that has gone on and things that are planned to go on going forward, it takes a lot of work in the background. So I know for me, I haven't stopped. People may not necessarily see everything that's being done, but I think a lot that we're going to discuss today would show the value in the work that was done behind the scenes to be able to bring about the things that are unfolding as we speak. So I apologize if people feel like I stepped away from it. In numbers, there's a lot to say about that, because you have people. Are people dying from COVID or are people dying with COVID? That's a whole debate in of itself. And then when you bring in the protocols being used at the hospital, it's a lot that we can get into around numbers.
well, you make an interesting point, because back then when Bermuda was going through that big rise, right? And the hospitals were full and there were deaths, right? I did hear, and again, I'm in different circles, right, in conversations, and I'm just going to play the clip that I came across the other day, and I'll tell you why I'm going to play it. Let's play this clip real quickly.
But first, let's talk about the treatment protocol in the hospital. Clearly, it's not working. Now, I called the hospital and I asked the question for the data. What are the stats on patients who come into the hospital with COVID and are treated at the hospital? Right? How many have actually survived in the treatment? Because now we've got to that point where it's a concern, not just about, right, surviving from the illness, it's surviving the treatment. Now, you've had people that have gone in that haven't even gone in with COVID and ended up being told that they tested positive with COVID, were given the treatment protocol, and they never came out of the hospital. You have nurses in the hospital telling people that they need to get their family members out. You have people who have had to go to the hospital and forcibly take their family out of the hospital to save their lives.
I came across that clip, and I have heard in conversations people say this dating back to September, right?
Right.
But and actually, much respect to Dr. Dolan, who was my doctor when I was living in Bermuda. Big respect to Dr. D for all the work that he does, not just in the practice, but he's been educating people for donkey's years, and all of a sudden being told not to listen to him, which is just another story, right? But I don't want to assume anything. I was unable to watch that entire episode, but based on that clip, just explain in greater detail what you meant by what you were saying.
Well, first of all, I say those comments came on the heels of comments that Dr. Darling made some weeks prior to that, where he came on with Glenn Blakeney and was talking about his direct experience with the protocols that were being used. So what I'm speaking about, during that time, there were a number of cases of people that, I'm personally acquainted with who were in the hospital, while I had other persons I'm personally acquainted with that were recovering from the same illness, right, as an outpatient outside of the hospital. All the people outside of the hospital are alive. The people in the hospital are not. Now, the conversation about the person having to take their family out, again, a very close friend of mine, right, his mother was in the hospital. She didn't go to the hospital sick with COVID. She went to the hospital for like high blood sugar. She got in the hospital. They told her that she was positive for COVID. He started watching her and noticed that she was deteriorating. And he spoke to his family and just went in and just against the interests of the doctors or whatever, he just took his mother out during his vehicle and took her home. His mother's alive. Now, we have a mutual friend whose mother was in the hospital the same time. Again, she did not go to the hospital sick with COVID. She, like my other friend, his mother was told that she had COVID after getting to the hospital. She's no longer with us. Then, I started to come across, I'm speaking to doctors And doctors are telling me about remdesivir because I'm saying to the hospital, I've actually been asking the hospital this for months, because if you're blocking hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, then what are you using? I find out that they're using remdesivir. Now, for anybody who watched the interview with Dr. Peter McCullough that we did, he was talking about how remdesivir in all the trials showed to cause liver and renal toxicity. If you look at if you're familiar with people who have passed in the hospitals, a lot of people who've died from kidney failure. They actually had to pull remdesivir in the trials, stop using it, because it was damaging people's kidneys at alarming rates. So why remdesivir is being used all around the world, why it's been given, emergency use authorization is really like alarming to me. Because in the Ebola trials and in the trials 5 months later for COVID, it both showed the same results. And it's being used. So I'm saying to the hospital, why are all these people dying of organ failure?
Yeah.
Then people at the hospital saying, oh, the organ failure is from COVID. I said, how is the organ failure from COVID? If you're saying that COVID is a respiratory disease, why is it damaging people's liver and kidney? It's not COVID, it's the medication. And it's a very sad situation. And the unfortunate thing is when you, and again, I've experienced this firsthand. I've been with friends to the hospital with family members. When you go into the hospital, you're presumed to have COVID until you're proven not to have it. So what happens is a lot of people that are not even positive, they're given the treatment protocol, remdesivir. Remdesivir is proven within 5 days to damage people's kidneys.
Wow.
So real quickly, I want to touch on much of Dr. Peter McCullough a bit later. So if you didn't get to watch it, folks, and I encourage you to watch it, not because I want you to agree with it or because he's all right, but just so you can understand, honestly, if we only watch a narrow space, then that's all we're going to know. So I only encourage people to watch it just to hear, you may not agree with anything, but you may understand why the position is what it is. So all those who are watching on YouTube, thanks again. And the radio station, thanks again. Don't forget to make sure you subscribe on the YouTube channel. Sherry, sorry about that.
That's okay. No, because that's important. We have to look at both sides. There's a new variant, Omicron. We could keep messing that up, but we'll go with it. It seems this pandemic is never ending. How do you believe we should be responding to the pandemic in the current state that we're in?
Well, I think the key thing is, and this is a lot of what Dr. Peter McCullough was saying, it's amazing how much data and information he's able to absorb and then regurgitate. And so it's important for us to follow the data. What happened in the beginning of the pandemic is that we didn't know much of anything. And this is everybody. But now, almost 2 years onwards, we've been able to learn a lot. And so there are some key things that, we can look at. We can look at all the data and determine how we move forward. For example, some things like asymptomatic testing is interesting because, the World Health Organization actually made a statement in June to say that, they didn't really recommend testing healthy people, but we've still had these testing frenzies all around the world. Now, so far, in the doctors I've spoken to, and the reports that I've seen, Omicron seems to be mild. The main outbreak has been in South Africa. From the reports I've seen, and again, the doctors I've talked to, they said it doesn't appear that the death rate has risen significantly or anything of that nature. So maybe we can feel optimistic about that. I've heard some doctors say that generally in outbreaks of this nature, eventually the virus tends to taper off. And it looks like we're hitting that trajectory now. We're starting to taper off. So I think, we just have to look at how the data comes out and respond accordingly. But at the moment, the advice that I'm hearing from medical professionals is that we should be protecting the elderly and treating people as they get sick. Allow the healthy population to continue life as normal. Because all these lockdowns and these mandates, the data is emerging to show that it's been catastrophic in terms of the negative impact that it's had. Particularly children, we really need to get out of the way of children, because the impact on children is really immense. When you're just taking away a lot of their developmental years, and a lot of times, we don't even know what the outcome of that is going to be in years to come.
Yeah, indeed, especially remember when back in the 80s, 90s, when international business came to Bermuda, really, and it changed the dynamic of the country. Now, what do I mean by that? You had those who couldn't get jobs in that sector pretty much had to go get second jobs, and if it was a single parent, then who was their assistant with their child? Children were growing, and the result of that, many would say, is what we have today. So I definitely don't think people have thought that deep about the effect this may have on the social aspect of children as they grow. But I want to go to obviously I have a lot to ask you about Dr. McCullough, but for those who don't know, you recently hosted him on Beyond the Pandemic TV on YouTube. I watched it, and I really took it in. I did take it in. But why do you believe that what he's saying validates your stance, or why should Bermudians listen to what he's saying? Because the question that we have from the audience, that James Birch is saying, and I actually have to agree with this question. It seems like all sides seem to cherry pick their own data or analysis to suit our beliefs. And let's just be honest, life is like that sometimes. When we go to court, you see a court battle, right? There's the prosecution, there's the defense. Both sides pretty much take what they want the jury to believe so that they can come out a winner in the case. Sometimes truth gets lost in that. Let's just be honest. So what with James's question and what I've just asked you about Dr. Peter McCullough, just why is it why is his gospel better than the gospel that people who may think very narrow and listen to only CNN or only Fox News? Why is this something they should adhere to?
Well, the thing that impressed me about Dr. Peter McCullough is that he actually cited research and peer-reviewed studies for everything that he said. It was very impressive how he did it. Now, some may say he selected the data and things of that nature. The concern I have is that, and let's just talk about Bermuda, for example. I don't hear any citations coming from health department, public health officials, politicians. I don't hear any citations at all. I've yet to even hear our chief medical officer or the chief of staff really cite any reports, other than one time I remember that, they were on a press conference citing a Roland Stearns article that was like a fake article, So I don't really hear them citing data. And I think that if you actually follow the data, you will be able to draw sensible conclusions. And that's not happening. So for me, I would say that if anybody has concerns about what Dr. Peter McCullough said, and we've gone through great lengths to actually put the research he cited up on our website. So if you go to beyondthepandemic.tv and go to the resources page, you can see a lot of these studies that he referenced. Read these studies yourself. Everybody's saying, let's follow the science, but I'm not sure who's really looking at it. Because I don't get the sense when I hear health authorities speaking, I don't get the sense that they're looking at the science. What I find is that science is being censored. For example, this whole conversation around natural immunity is laughable that people are actually questioning natural immunity. SARS-CoV-1, right? The SARS outbreak, which is some 90-something% similar to the virus we're dealing with now, people still have immunity. That was 18 years ago. And there have been numerous studies. One of our upcoming guests on this show is Dr. Paul Alexander. He's a research doctor. You know, he worked for the World Health Organization on COVID advisor. He also has worked for the White House as a COVID advisor. He's reviewed now over 120 something studies on natural immunity.
Mhm.
And the overwhelming evidence is that, you know, it's robust and that it's at worst equal to immunity from the jab. But in most of the reports, it clearly shows that it's superior because you've had all these breakthrough infections to the point that the CDC, you know, and Fauci, they've had to come out and say that they're concerned with Delta, that, you know, it's not stopping transmission. It's not stopping people from getting sick. It's not stopping hospitalization, and it hasn't stopped deaths.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually encourage people to go to data, bring the data to the table, because with our program, that's the only thing we've been trying to provide a platform for. So you don't have to listen to me. Just watch the episodes, listen to what the health professionals are saying, look at the data that they're referencing, and then make decisions on your own. If you can come back and say it's not saying that, then fine. Otherwise than that, I'm not sure what legs you have to stand on.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. And Sherry, I know you've done a master's degree. I've done a master's degree. One thing I hated about graduate school, you had to cite everything. Like, you know how in undergrad or high school you may be able to BS an essay, right? Like you go write a little something. The graduate school you had to cite everything.
APA.
But I think that's important. The APA format too. Yes, the APA format. We didn't do MPA, we did APA. And so, you know, not making light of what you're saying, but folks, I think that point can't go without, because I cannot tell you. I'm sitting here thinking while Eugene was talking, I haven't heard them cite this or that. Maybe I'm not sure if that's my bias, but I just haven't. So that is a good point that can be understood. Go ahead, Sherry. Sorry.
And my bias within what you just said, though, Eugene, is the whole immunity thing. I said this about you from the beginning. You've been consistent over the years, right? Not everybody has been as consistent as you are when it comes to their health. What can you say? And I know Sophia Cannoneer has as well, because I know that she's been about this lifestyle for a minute. But you know, when you look at the two of you and somebody of, I'll just say me, who hasn't been about that lifestyle for a long time, how can you talk to people about it being immunities and all of those kind of things when that hasn't been what it is prior to that? Does that make sense?
Well, it's interesting. Yes, it definitely does make sense. Yesterday, we interviewed the executive director of the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, Dr. Jane Orient. And what she said is that if it wasn't for natural immunity, then the human race would have been extinct a long time ago. You know? So what I'm hearing from all the health professionals is early treatment. You know, every single one of the health professionals that we've spoken to outside of Bermuda has started the conversation with early treatment. You know, now you're going to see in some of the comments that Dr. McCullough made in his interview, you know, what some of the things are that you can do, but there are a lot of options. So the key thing that they're saying is that, you know, listen, everyone, this whole thing about if you test positive, go home and wait and see if you get sick. No, we don't do that. That's not how we practice medicine. We've never done that. You know, you be proactive. So deal with early treatment. You know, they're saying that, you know, the virus tends to live in the nose and the mouth area for a few days before it enters into the body. And they have found that with certain treatments, simple treatments that anybody can do, you can kill it off before it even gets into your body. You know, so this is the important thing to do. The challenge is that, right, when you have a vaccine made available with emergency use authorization, that emergency use authorization can only exist if there are no treatment options available. So what we found is that there's been a blockage of treatments because if you have treatments, then the emergency use authorization has to go away. And so for the vaccine producers, when they have invested all this time and money and things of that nature into it, they don't want to hear about treatment protocols. So that's what's gotten in the way of the process. We don't generally, if you look all throughout history, you don't vaccinate people during pandemics. You treat people. Vaccines always come later. But we've done that in totally opposite this time around. And a lot of the deaths have to be attributed to that. People are actually being denied access to successful treatments, even here in Bermuda. And when I talk to people in Australia, when I talk to people in the UK, when I talk to people in America, when I talk to people in Israel, they're all going through the same thing. The hospitals are calling ivermectin horse dewormer, and they're not giving it to people.
But see, I want to stop you there. But not only are they calling it that, I stay in my lane. And that's one thing I've learned as I've gotten older. Like, we have an opportunity to learn, right? But I think there's an arrogance and entitlement that doesn't allow us to learn sometimes. So if someone's saying it's a horse dewormer, regardless of what education level, sometimes our minds are so weak and we don't know that's what we're going to run with because it's being said. Sometimes it's not what's said, it's how many times that drum's beaten and the access that it has, which is taking me here. And before we go, we are just going to ask about the latest with Sophia Kenner, but it looks like she's actually stated in the audience on December 13th and 14th, Sophia Kenner and Michael Watson will stand up for natural immunity. But I came across an article last night, December 2nd, 2021, released or updated at 8:49 Eastern time on the mainstream New York Times. And basically, a past coronavirus infection appears to give little immunity to the new Omicron variant rippling across the globe. South African scientists warned on Thursday, potentially turn away one layer of the defense that humanity has won slowly at immense cost, right? Now, I'm not going to read the entire thing. It then goes on to say, scientists have known since early in the pandemic that the immunity gained from a coronavirus infection is not total and probably not permanent, and that some people are reinfected. Even so, with a huge number of people infected and recovered, about 260 million worldwide that have been detected, and reality, far more experts say whatever protection they had looked like an important layer in the world's defenses. What do you say to that, Eugene?
What data did they cite? What research?
Absolutely. That's why I started what I said. That's why I said mainstream New York Times, right? And that's why I literally started in the meta idea. But when you see stories like this, right? And then, James Birch is asking a question here as well. He's asking, stating, he said, natural immunity, like vaccine immunity, doesn't stop you spreading it to others who would likely die or be seriously ill, even with the current treatments. So I guess the question about all of this here, right, is Sherry will tell you there were times we had discussions on this show where we discussed one day, Eugene, about the media, right? Like what media you listen to, what media leans this way or that way. And for the life of me, people couldn't understand their own bias.
Right.
So part of the issue, you take away, let's remove the pandemic as the example.
Yes.
You can place a football in the middle of us. All three of us will probably walk away with a different perspective of that football. Sherry may say, that's not a football, that's a soccer ball. You may say, well, my information shows me that it's actually called football in 80% of the world, so this is what we're going with. I may say, who cares? I don't understand it. It makes no sense. And neither of you have showed me evidence to believe that this should matter to me and it's going to be in my best interest to, you know what I'm saying? So I know that's a way off stupid analogy and example, but my point is you can take anything, anything in this world and make people believe what you want to believe. The challenges here to me is what you've stated is that we listen to every and anybody without making people reference where they're getting the information. One of the things I say to Jackie and Terry with Good Day Bermuda all the time, they'll tell you, make sure when you're having conversations, you can go to a reference. You can cite what you're saying. When we had David Bradwin ask Sherry, every question we had had a link, a reference there, citing. So nobody can say, oh, well, where this question, there has to be, you coming on, you sent a link to watch Dr. McCullough. It was about 2-3 weeks ago, so I don't remember everything. But my point is, we're not wired and trained to do our own research. That's not, we're formally educated. We're well schooled. We're well trained individuals. We are trained to be born. We are trained to go and work for people, to make a living, right? That's part of our training. But we're not trained like to research beyond what we've been told.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're not. So that said, because I obviously want to get back to you. I think we're in a place, Eugene. I think we're in a place that I don't see us getting out of this anytime soon. I don't see this getting better. Why do I say that? There's a new variant, and there will be more variants. And I don't believe that we can boost our way out of this.
Right.
But what suggestions do you have?
Well, the thing is, like I said, we have to look at the data. So even James Birch, he made a statement there, and people may be nodding their heads in agreement with it. But I would ask James what data he has to support that. If anybody has questions about natural immunity, I would suggest go to Dr. Paul Alexander's website. As I said earlier, he's reviewed over 120 something studies on natural immunity, and he's been able to give a synopsis of the whole thing. We are interviewing him next week on December 7th, so we'll have an episode, and obviously that's going to be one of the things. Dr. Paul Alexander is also agreed to represent the Watson Cannoner family in the case on natural immunity, along with Christina Parks, who's another PhD, along with Peter McCullough and Dr. Leland Stillman. So, I would encourage people to go and look at those resources, but we have to also look at history about these things. And sometimes just common sense can help us through things, So I know that there probably have been commercials where people have tried to say that baby formula is better than breast milk, But when you really think about it, how do you say that something you're making to imitate something else is better than what you're trying to imitate?
Gotcha.
You see what I mean? So the reality with the jabs is that they're delivering immunity based on the spike protein. If you look at the data, the mutations in the virus, a lot of those mutations are happening with the spike protein. That's why the Delta variant evaded the jabs. You see what I mean? Now, with natural immunity, you actually get immunity from everything. Your body memorizes everything about the virus, all the internal, all the external parts. It's all sorts of different levels. Now, again, I'm not the one studying all the research. I'm talking about things that I've been told. So people should go and look. But we need to move beyond just taking what we hear. Dr. Darling said this in our very first episode. He said, everybody's talking about trusted science. But who's really looking at the science? If you're not looking at the science, you trust the scientists or the politician that trust the scientists.
Well, truthfully, I don't understand the science enough to trust it. I'm just being honest. I'm gonna be honest with you. I go back to staying in my lane. I try to understand stuff, but I want to bring in Dr. McCullough real quickly and just go through some of the things that he has said. He says COVID-19 is largely an age-dependent disease, especially for people over the age of 65, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. I just want to say, he said he's never really seen such an age-dependent disease before. You know what I mean? Whereas it really targets the elderly, So, but go ahead.
He says anyone under the age of 50 has a less than 1% risk of death. But see, this is where I disagree with a lot of people. This statement right here. And this is why. Because there have been reports, at least, that, and I think both sides have admitted this, just because someone doesn't die from it doesn't mean that they're not going to have long-term impact from it. And
Right.
so this statement has always bothered me, because we're acting as if just because there's no death, that it doesn't impact someone's heart or other organs. And I think someone said that in the comments earlier. It's not just a respiratory disease. It can impact other organs, right?
The after effect.
Right. So I think that that's my only issue with that comment, is that I don't think we should be looking at it just about who's dead or alive, but how is it impacting people? And again, I don't know if there are studies that have been done yet to tell me this, but that's why I'm asking the question. That's what I want to know. He goes on to say the impact on children who contract the virus is milder than a cold, right? He also said the COVID-19 virus is relatively easily killed through oral and nasal rinses.
Right. This is the early treatment stuff. Yeah.
Correct. I want to get to the one where he spoke. Here we go. People over 50 should use, and he mentions what you mentioned earlier. I'm not even going to try to pronounce some of them, but the hydrochloric, you know what I mean, and
hydroxychloroquine, yes.
Yeah, and ivermectin, right? But here's the challenge: is you have the doctors, as mentioned, people saying it's a horse dewormer. You have some people who say, well, I'm not trusting these big companies, pharmaceuticals, but yet these things are made from the pharmaceuticals. On both sides, I just have felt like, hey, if you don't want to, go ahead, Sherry.
I was gonna say it's pros and cons to either side, and that's where it becomes the whole issue of what do you believe and where do you line your beliefs with, and again, it's not to say that what Eugene's saying is wrong, but I'm sure I could go over here and find something else that says, you know what I mean? So it leads the public to be just so confused on what it is that they need or should do. And then that's when you end up having people saying, look, I'm just going to do what's right for me and just leave it at that. And whatever that may look like, so it does. It sometimes too much information becomes, it's like, you like, forget it. I'm just going to do whatever,
Yeah. And I want to, and I just want to say this as we wrap up with, because I want to go to the audience. The audience obviously have a lot of questions and we can be concise. So then there's a question in the audience from Sam Cat Place, and she says, yeah, but others references credible. Sometimes credible truly isn't, and that's caused plenty of confusion. So Eugene, in fairness, because you talk about doing research, and this is something I pride myself on. So I went and I Googled Dr. Peter McCullough, right? And the first thing that comes up is doctor fired for spreading COVID misinformation, finds supportive crowd in Bartersville. Then I go on and it says in the Dallas Morning News, Baylor Health sues COVID-19 vaccine skeptic and demands Dallas doctor stop using its name. And, there's a trend here. No, I'm going to, because I'm a fair person, I don't throw people out just because of stuff like this. Because when you go against the grain in the system, this is the kind of stuff that happens. Let's just be clear if you understand this.
Yeah.
But I don't think that helps the cause, right? In terms of trying to convince people that someone's credible. You got what I'm saying?
Yeah, for real. So, I'm glad you brought that up, because the censorship and the fact checkers, and the slandering has been unprecedented in this regard. There's been an all-out attack on anyone who says anything that doesn't suit the status quo narrative. And Dr. McCullough is no stranger to that at all. I can just say that in my personal experience, I've yet to meet someone who's more credible, right, and more informed and up to date on all the data as it relates to the pandemic. I'm not aware of anyone else in the world in that regard. But see, what people have to do is we have to make sure that we're focusing our energy in the right direction. It's kind of like you mentioned to me about Kyrie Irving.
Yes.
Now, Kyrie Irving has taken a position that he doesn't wish to get the COVID vaccine, and he's not allowed to play. Now you have people. I watch somebody on ESPN, call Kyrie Irving outright stupid and all sorts of things, and saying he betrayed his team and all of that. And I'm saying, hold on. What about the people that made the mandate that said all of a sudden, one day, the same healthy pro athlete who's been coming in your stadium all of 2020 and playing basketball is now all of a sudden not allowed to come into your stadium in New York? Why are we putting our energy on that person? Why are we criticizing Kyrie for taking a position about his personal health, right? Instead of the people that put a mandate that, if you really look at it, could be nonsensical. We went through all of 2020. They played the NBA. And all of a sudden in 2021, after we're supposed to have all these medical interventions, all of a sudden he's not allowed, and now he's a traitor. And then what are we doing? Celebrating people who capitulated? Like all the players who said, I really didn't want to, but I was forced to. And like, that's the thing we have to look at. So obviously the fact checkers are going to come at people like Dr. McCullough. When I talked to Dr. Paul Alexander, he was in the White House working for the government, researching data. He was telling a story about when Fauci went out and was talking about shutting down all these schools and things of that nature. And he was asking Fauci, well, where is the data to support that? Because the data doesn't support what you're suggesting, right? He got all out attacked. He said he was told by people in the administration, listen, this is how things work around here, right? You're about to be targeted, right? And he was like, well, what can we do about it? He said, well, it's already too late, right? These stories are going to start coming out in a few days. And they just try everything to try to discredit you.
But what about, real quickly, because we've got to wrap it up, but I feel bad because we didn't get to the audience as much as I'd like to. But Shikarena says companies and corporations are taking a stance because of liability. Deep pockets are a target. What about some companies that are literally just out there trying to protect their people because of the information that they've received and what they believe?
And protect the people how? By
From
putting
the virus spreading. For instance, I may not agree with vaccine mandates, but if they believe that, you know what, we want our employees to be all vaccinated or whatnot, then they believe that's protecting their company from liability, right? Because if, let's say, someone contracts it, right, at their place of employment and something happens to them, who's to say they can't sue? So I think in some respects, I think that's what Shikarena is saying.
Well, I would say to those companies, take responsibility for adverse effects if you're making, right, vaccination a work requirement. And then we can get some balance on the table. But that's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. And we haven't even touched on adverse effects. And that's right. You see what I mean? So people are saying that they're afraid on one side, but nobody's talking about the other side of the equation. All the people that's been harmed, all the professional athletes that are not able to compete anymore. I mean, the list goes on and on, but I know we have time constraints.
Yes. So I'll go through these comments real quickly. James Burt says it's a dangerous route to group fact checkers with slanderers, right? We have Bob's your uncle. I love that. It's enough to say we can agree to disagree when one group is forcing its beliefs on another. And Nachika Trot actually had a question. Hopefully you can answer this. Has Bermuda government released data on the number of persons affected by the vaccine in Bermuda? Affected by the vaccine?
Yeah, I mean, it's just talking about adverse effects. It's been a challenging thing. We tried to follow up. There was, at one point, as a result of pressure, then someone was appointed to a role of supposed to be collecting that data. But when we tried to follow up with the person, not only couldn't we find the person, but nobody at the hospital, anybody seemed to know who this person was. So I don't know what data it is. There's been a few things. Obviously, there are people who have had the jabs and have passed or have been hospitalized. Some of that data has come out, but there's been nothing comprehensive. Most times we hear from people who are upset because when they go to report their adverse effects, they're being told that it has nothing to do with the jails.
Yeah. I want to end it on this because this is a perfect comment by Chanel Vaughn. It says, we all see the world through the lens of our conditioning. Therefore, listen to all you've been told and dismiss what disagrees with your own soul. Eugene, I'm going to be honest. I have a lot of questions. I take in both sides. I try to be understanding. But if there's one thing I've learned is the name calling, the disrespect,
right,
and the arrogance. The arrogance to see almost people laughing or smiling when someone who's not vaccinated passes, acting as if almost, well, should have got vaccinated. But
Right.
also, the other side, there are people who say, dumbass, shouldn't have got vaccinated, still got it, like stuff like that. I feel like, it doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't. But there has to be, we have to look at each other as humans before anything else.
Exactly.
And I think that is what's been lost in all of this. We're not looking and treating each other like humans. Eugene, we're gotta have you back. We have to have you back soon because, and the reason I want to have you back soon is, what do people do in January? They usually start this new diet and try to get in shape and all of that stuff. And I think that, when you look back at 2020, people were like, oh, I can't wait for this year to be over, as if the pandemic and the way it was being handled was just going to disappear. We've went under 2 years of this.
Yeah.
I want to have you back in January to discuss this and many other things further. So thank you.
Thank you.
We honestly, man, again, you're very open. And I appreciate the fact that you have taken up this fight. And it's not about who agrees with you or who doesn't. It's really about the information that you can teach.
You align with, yeah.
And without anger, right? Teach people, especially those who pretty much are open to hearing other people's sides. So thank you for that, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, give thanks.
How can people get in touch with you? Watch the episode.
Well, that's what I was saying. I encourage people to go to beyondthepandemic.tv, our website. A lot of people have seen episodes because they've been shared on WhatsApp or YouTube or Rumble or thing. But if you go to the website, you'll be able to see everything. And we have a long list of international, highly credentialed health professionals that we've already started interviewing. So you should see a flurry of new episodes coming out really soon.
Cool, my brother. We'll be in touch. Thanks again.
Bye, Eugene.
All right, Eugene Dean, folks. Folks, do not go anywhere. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the station. Give us a thumbs up, a love, a like if you appreciated that conversation with Eugene Dean. Honestly, really appreciate the audience engaging with that conversation. Folks, I just want us to all remain calm and respectful throughout this. Like, getting angry at one another is not helpful.
You can't hear nothing.
You can't hear anything, seriously. Like, if we're respectful, we have a better chance of understanding and loving despite how people may feel.
Yeah. And you don't have to agree.
You don't.
And that's the difference. You don't have to agree, but understand from where someone's coming from. And that's it.
And protect yourself as best as you believe is going to keep you and others safe. We're going to take a quick break. We have to, well, actually, we're going to go a bit longer because we have to play. I want to play the movement moment from Tamara real quickly. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to this movement moment brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Together, we can eliminate your path to wellness.
Welcome to today's movement moment with Tamara Donnell, brought to you by People's. Tamara, what are we discussing today?
Good morning, Jamal, and good morning, as always, to your listening audience. We are wrapping up this month's horoscope of power, humility, the power of gratitude, just to discuss 6 ways that you can speak about your accomplishments without bragging. So humility versus ego, which we have alluded to this past month. I think about 2 weeks ago, we talked about being coachable. No matter how amazing your coach might be on a team, if you are uncoachable, then your potential for growth is significantly stunted, as well as your risks of walking into peril. So being coachable, being humble, approaching things with gratitude is such an important tool in your arsenal for wellness. So let's talk about 6 ways that you can talk about your accomplishments without bragging and without speaking from a place of ego. The first way that I practice speaking about my accomplishments is I keep the emphasis on my hard work. So no emotions, no hyperbole, just matter of fact, talking about my hard work. The second way is to not belittle others. My competition is my competition, and how well I do has no bearing on how I speak about my competition. I focus solely on my own actions and, like I said, my own hard work. The third way you can speak from a place of humility is to give credit where it's due. As a leader, I am quick to give credit where it's due because I recognize it takes an entire team to be successful. It's not just the actions of any one person. So giving credit where it's due is critical. The fourth way, stick to the facts. Beliefs, opinions, they all tend to get mashed together in today's world. Let's stick to the facts when we're talking about our accomplishments. Fifth way is to express gratitude, to be grateful for and thankful for the contributions of others, what has led you to your accomplishments. Showing gratitude often puts you in a place where you're using language that's coming from a place of humility. And then the sixth way is don't add any qualifiers. Just tell it like it is. But more importantly, let your actions speak louder than your words.
Thank you for tuning.
A lot happens around your home. That is why at One Communications, we have introduced affordable security and video monitoring, because everyone should be able to afford to protect their family. Anytime, from anywhere, One Home Security keeps you connected and puts security in your hands with an easy-to-use smartphone app to control everything. Home security is important to keep you and your family safe. Motion-activated cameras around your home and security monitoring within create a complete security system providing protection both inside and outside your home. Professional monitoring means that there's someone on call with 24/7 protection to notify the authorities and help keep you and your loved ones safe. We are dedicated to whole home protection with indoor and outdoor cameras, smart door locks, motion sensors, and more, so you'll always be connected to what matters most. With professional installation, no upfront hardware fees, and low monthly rates, because keeping your family safe should be affordable for everyone. Total home video monitoring and security, there's no better way to protect your home than with One Home Security.
All right, welcome back. Thanks again to Eugene Dean. If you appreciated the conversation, make sure you give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thanks again to People's Pharmacy, One Communications, Lindos, and Medical. It's time for the Daily Play brought to you by Heineken 0.0. Great taste, no alcohol. Sherry, are you ready?
Gosh, you're like on WhatsApp 1.5. Go ahead.
All right, folks, help her out. She might need your help. This is a very easy question, right? Remember I said to you, you might
Christmas.
Okay. What color are Santa Claus's boots?
Black.
She got it, folks. All right. One more. What is the most popular Christmas tree ornament on top of the tree?
Angel. Bow.
Really?
Santa? It's not an angel? A star. Sorry, star.
Okay. She got it. All right. Any final thoughts on today's show real quickly?
Do your research, and that's all I can say. Do research in all areas and do what's best for you and your family.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'll say the same, honestly. I think folks do the research, but also research the research.
Yeah.
Research the research. And at the end of the day, Malcolm X warned us about the media. This is why we create platforms like this. This is why we have to create our own platforms to get our messages out. And thanks to the internet, we're able to do that.
Yes.
Any daily
Real
inspiration for us?
daily inspiration. Tough times never last, but tough people do, by Robert H. Schuller. Good, bad, and the ugly. Real quick. Glad it's Christmas. You know that this is the month for Christmas. I'm excited about that. Bad, the new variant, and ugly, what it may bring for travel restrictions and all of that type of stuff.
Let's
So, yeah.
hope not. Let's hope
Yeah, I
not. Thanks again
know.
to our partners, Medical House One Communications, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy, for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you next week, Monday. She's Sherry Vanderpool. I'm Jamal Hartman. My friends, please make it a great and safe weekend. We're about to be out. Peace.
Out.